So to introduce the speakers, nice to meet you. My name is Alix, and I am a campaign consultant for End Water Poverty. So I have been helping coordinate our Water Action Month campaign this year. Wonderful campaign so far, thoroughly enjoying working with our network of partners around the world. We also have online today Stuart Kempster, who is a policy analyst at WaterAid, and Amy Keegan, a policy officer also at WaterAid. We also have online Lotte Fierstein, apologies for not maybe pronouncing your name correctly, who's a program manager at the Water Integrity Network. And last but not least, Samson Shivaji, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Water and Sanitation CSOs Network, or KEWASNet, who's a great End Water Poverty member. So I would like to very briefly launch a quick poll and get to know the audience a little bit today. So you should see this question come up on your screen, and it will ask you what region you're located in. So if you can just click one of the options here, and I will leave it on for another 15 seconds and see, just to get a feel for who is in the room today. Okay, half of you have voted so far. Okay, I'll leave it another 5 seconds and I'll close it. Oh, people are still voting. All right. So we had most of you vote. And it looks like we have over half actually in sub-Saharan Africa, and then a third in Western Europe, and then the rest is split between Eastern Europe, Middle East, North Africa, and Asia. So a nice global audience today. That's amazing. Thank you and welcome. Okay, wonderful. So I will, apologies. I will pass it on over to Amy and Stuart, and we'll unmute you, Stuart, and you guys have the floor.
Great. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great, yeah.
Great. Okay.
I'm also going to send you over the keyboard and mouse control, so you actually have control over the slides as well.
Great, thanks very much. Hi everyone, my name's Amy Keegan. As Alex said, I work for WaterAid. So to start off the webinar today, we're going to be talking a bit about an overview of monitoring and accountability in the WASH sector. So to start the discussion, I suppose the thing to look at is what currently is the system of monitoring in the WASH sector. So as you, sorry, just to go back slide, is that me? Sorry, technical difficulties. I don't think I'm doing anything. Okay, thanks. Okay, so to start off, monitoring within the WASH sector. Now, there are many different levels that we can talk about in monitoring, shown on the screen here. So firstly, we have program monitoring, so very local level, who is actually doing the monitoring of WASH programming that's happening all around the world. So this can break down into donors, NGOs, private sectors, and users. Then at a country level, if we're looking at WASH at a country level, it's national and subnational water, sanitation, and hygiene strategies. And it's governments really who are both producing the information and doing a lot of the monitoring at this level. Regionally, there are regional commitments such as SACA-SAN, AMCOW, and Latino-SAN. So the governments commit to these, and CSOs tend to informally monitor these commitments. And then at an international level, you're looking at the human right to water and sanitation, the Sustainable Development Goals, and other commitments such as the SWA commitments. But as you can see, even within one aspect of that, so SDG 6, there are 3 different agencies monitoring this target. So why is monitoring important? So it allows us within the sector to identify gaps and challenges, to reveal what works and what doesn't work within the sector. This can then help officials make informed decisions about targeting resources in the most equitable way. It also allows us to make regional, national, and global comparisons. This can be a motivation factor to show who's doing better than others and who, doesn't want to be a bad student within the WASH sector. But monitoring itself gives us a lot of information. It gives us a lot of data, and unless we work on this, unless we hold these institutions and organisations to account, the monitoring without the accountability that isn't that successful. So why accountability? There often tends to be a wide gap between the level of ambition in the WASH sector and the levels of progress. You can see that from the many commitments that governments and donors often sign up to, but they're not followed up on. There's not the proper monitoring mechanisms, and so therefore they don't end up achieving these. As you saw from the slide from a few slides ago, there's also a fragmentation of monitoring mechanisms within the WASH sector. There are so many different levels, regional, national, global, and unless we bring them all together, it's hard to get that true sense of what's happening on the ground. Focusing on accountability can also show governments that CSOs are mobilised around WASH issues and hold their governments to account. This can motivate governments to take action. So what are some of the practical benefits to monitoring and accountability? So firstly, by sharing this data, by bringing it all together, it gives us a global view. It allows us to truly see what's happening at all levels within the sector. Having access to data also allows you to evaluate if your country is making progress, what are the challenges, and how to adapt strategies accordingly. Finally, data allows us to identify where disparities are and highlight priority areas for financial and human resources. And now I'm going to hand over the next section.
Great. Thank you so much for that great background, and I love the point of the importance of making decisions based on information and data. I think that is very important. So Lotte, I will give you the mouse control now for you to present on some of the content from Water Integrity Network.
Thanks a lot, Alex, and welcome everybody. So I'll look a bit more specifically at, I mean, it was already highlighted that monitoring has an important role in terms of accountability, and I'll look a bit more with a bit more depth also into the integrity aspects of that, and dig up some cases of where this has worked well or not so well. Okay. So as it was already mentioned, one key function of monitoring and evaluation in the sector is to identify gaps and to verify what's the performance and to bring out information of how performance can be improved. What is important in terms of integrity is that there are actually a lot of indicators already that can also tell us something about integrity. For example, if you talk about utilities, most utilities monitor non-revenue water. The problem is just that at the moment you don't really look at what part of that is physical losses, for example, and what part of that is what is often called commercial losses, which are also partly due to mismanagement and integrity failures. And at the moment we see also with the change from the MDG to the SDG framework, but also what's happening around SWA or the OECD water governance principle, that there is a lot happening in terms of monitoring. And there is a lot happening in terms of bringing on other stakeholders to triangulate data and verify this from the ground. But yeah, we believe that more needs to happen on that, and give some examples of where this is already working quite well. So one of the key things in terms of monitoring, which I think Amy already highlighted as well, is of course that what gets monitored counts. And so by monitoring certain things and not others, you set incentives, which is super important for the sector, but it also means that this can be very vulnerable to manipulation either of data that is reported, so that you have wrong data being reported, creating a biased picture, or that there is hesitance of monitoring certain issues that might, for example, highlight problematic areas in the sector. Or, for example, a big thing is that what doesn't get monitored counts. And, for example, the issue of corruption or mismanagement is often not monitored, also because nobody wants to talk about it. So the point of verification of monitoring data is still a challenge in many countries. And as I already said, this issue of what is not being monitored, and in terms of the sector, you often see, for example, when it comes to wash services, there is a lot of data on urban water services. There is a lot less on community managed services or rural water services in areas which are hard to reach, and there's often also very poor data on sanitation, and that often also is reflected then in where investments go. So one example of where monitoring didn't work so well is from the Total Sanitation campaign in India. And in 2011, the program actually reported, so this is a national program, a big investment program of the government to accelerate access to safe sanitation. And in 2011, they reported that sanitation coverage had increased pretty unbelievably from 22 to 68%. And then at the same time in 2011, a census came out, which put sanitation coverage only at 31%. And what an independent analysis showed is that within this total sanitation campaign, their monitoring actually basically just looked at the money that they had spent in a certain location, but they didn't look at what was achieved with that money. So if in their plans they say, okay, we disperse this money and 100 latrines, for example, get built, then they put in their monitoring 100 latrines serving that many people, but they didn't verify whether these latrines actually got built. And the big gap between the coverage and the census data showed that actually a lot of the investments got lost, and they didn't trace that in their monitoring. But of course, there are not only problems, there are also a lot of opportunities, and as already highlighted, the SDGs also give new opportunities for monitoring, and we do also have some new allies that we can work with. So a lot of countries have independent regulators that do independent monitoring, and you can also work with supreme audit institutions and parliaments on this. So one example from Peru is actually where the Supreme Audit Institution built an online portal which brought together information from budgets and procurement data and enables citizens to put up information, for example, on public infrastructure investments, verifying whether the information which is in the portal showing this, for example, this school wash facilities are being built for that kind of money. This is the contractor who's doing it, and this is supposed to be the progress, so they can put comments, upload pictures, whether this is actually true, which is a great tool also for citizens to engage in monitoring. Somehow I can't move forward. Okay, now I'm there. Another good example is from Kenya, where the regulator actually started monitoring corporate governance of utilities. And by that, of course, providing incentives for utilities to improve their governance. And one example, so what they did, they looked at the oversight, the boards, you know, but not only who's in the board, but also how are the board members selected, and is proper public participation in the selection of board members carried out, for example, and how are utilities engaging with customers? Are they carrying out public audits, for example, or public hearings? And are they including citizens in tariff adaptation? So, and what they are seeing is that there is also a linkage between the performance of the utilities and these governance indicators, but of course that they only started this now, so it will take a bit more time to trace this over time as well. So recommendations is one, check what you monitor and look at governance as well to set the right incentives through your monitoring systems. Secondly, make sure you verify data and you bring in independent third parties to verify the data that you are reporting. And yeah, once again, I mean, not only within your own systems, but also among government, encourage independent monitoring of activities. And that can be done through media, it can be done through specialized organizations like watchdogs institutions or auditors, but it can also be done through citizen monitoring from the ground.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lotte. And I really enjoyed the concrete examples and the stories, specifically from India. I think it's so important to remember that accountability and monitoring determines where investments go, but then also provide an opportunity to track those investments in return as well. So very important to discuss all of this. Samson, I will give you the mouse control, and let me just make sure that, okay. So Samson, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Alex, and listeners. My name is Samson Shivaji from WaSHwatch in Kenya, and I would just like to share very few insights from an upcoming CSO performance report, which is the third in its edition that WaSHwatch has produced together with a number of our partners. And I will just pick up from where Lotte has actually stated, where we are saying that civil society organizations are seen as oversight institutions. But that role is also questioned quite a lot when a number of critics try to question whether civil society organizations are really the right entity. And questions have been raised about our own level of accountability, our claim to be specialists and good at what we do, and whether we define our own problems and solve them, and whether it is the real need of the people that we address, or the needs that are defined by the funding opportunities that we have. And of course, civil society has stood over time as an entity that speaks for the most marginalized within the community. So how do we address these questions? And one of the things we've tried as CHAOSNet to answer some of these questions is by demonstrating internal accountability by civil society in order to give us the right standing to be able to question the service providers, the governments of the day, in terms of their mandate to ensure that the services are delivered to all. So generally, in terms of our recommendation, general recommendation is that the civil society stand a better opportunity to be influential if they ensure that what they do is all-rounded. It spans the entire sector, from the services that they engage in providing, the policy engaging processes, as well as monitoring and reporting. And the civil society performance report produced by CHAOSNet tries to look at this roundedness in approach, looking at the projects that are done, how they are managed, and what is the enabling environment across which the projects operate. Now, just to look at the two reports, looking at the 2014-15 report and the 2015-16 report that you can see on your screen, the one on the left showed quite a bit of discrepancy between the self-reporting, which is the plot in yellow, and the validated data, which is the area within gray. And on the right-hand side, the blue line showing the self-reporting, while the gray line showing the validated data. And very similar to the case in India, we find that many agencies that self-report will tend to look at the better side of their performance. And therefore, it's very important for us to also do the validation to ensure that the report that is given is accurate and that is able to demonstrate a true picture that, if we then present, is able to be to stand the level of critique from any other body. Now, I'll just go to the recommendations, some of the key recommendations that come from our report in order to show you exactly what are the key issues. One is on the issue of sustainability, that the civil society need to focus a little bit more on strengthening civil engagement rather than the service provision component. But when they do that, it must be clear that this is done in support of a government role, and therefore it needs to be very clear that civil society have a clear exit strategy. And also, very importantly, we need to have the donor agencies that support the engagement of civil society, ensuring that there is sufficient support to ensure that the civil society engagement has a smooth exit. On quality and compliance, in order to have the right standing, the right voice, then civil society need to demonstrate that they are compliant with the national standards and regulations that are in place. And again, in this case, those who support the civil society engagement also need to ensure that they have that requirement, that civil society are accountable and that their work can be benchmarked for reference with others. And government needs to provide the right framework for facilitating such engagement. One last important thing that we are also working on with the current report is the issue of integrity. In our report, we are, as you'll see from the slides that I skipped, the level of losses that are experienced by civil society accounts to up to 10% of the total budget that civil society runs. And therefore, it is very important to look at what are the questions on integrity and how do we address the gaps that arise from the civil society engagement. And therefore, in this case, it would be very important to have peer-to-peer learning in terms of how do you deal with situations that arise that then result to the bribery and corruption. And how do we also ensure that other sectors beyond the WASH and WRM sector are dealing with the question of integrity and speaking about it, so that it's not just the WASH sector speaking about it. But more importantly, how do we engage government to ensure that the arms that are responsible for ensuring anti-corruption are strong enough and functional to ensure that they support the implementation of the curtailing of the fraudulent activities that could be there. I'll stop there, Alex.
Thank you, Samson. I think all of those points are so important to bring up, and particularly important when you look at where the funding comes from for civil society organizations and how that source of funding determines the decisions that are made with that funding and the incentives behind them. So thank you so much for that insight. So moving on to some tools available, and in order to pass on the controls, I'm actually going to also give screen share to Stuart here. Bear with me just 1 second. Okay, Stuart, you should be able to share your screen. Let me know if you're unable to do that. Oops.
Yeah, Alex, we can share our screen, but we don't have the presentation here. So.
Okay, that is fine. Can you still see my screen?
No. No.
No, you guys are looking at your own screens. Okay, so go ahead and share your screen.
You should be able to see it.
Okay, yes, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so you can see my screen.
Yeah, we're all set. You have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll just go on WaSHwatch then. So, okay, WaSHwatch is a tool. It's an accountability platform for the WASH sector. So a lot of these issues that we've been discussing, we're trying to this is our answer to how we can support CSOs to monitor the WASH sector within countries and internationally, and also to hold people accountable as well. So I'm just going to kind of talk through the website a bit, show some of the main features. Yeah, so as you can see here, this is the homepage. The website is www.washwatch.org. The website is available in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. So to start off with, I am going to show you our country profiles. So for every country in the world, if you go to the countries tab, you can see them all. We have this country profile. I'm going to stick with Kenya, as that's what we've been discussing. So I'm going to take you to Kenya's country profile. And the idea is that all of the information on this profile is useful to CSOs and really anyone who's engaging with the WASH sector within this country. So the first thing we do is we have declarations and commitments. So everything that the Kenyan government has signed up to. So as you can see here, national, you've got the SWA commitments, we have the regional commitments, and then the global commitments. So that includes rights to water and sanitation, the Millennium Development Goals, and the Sustainable Development Goals. As you can see, we have these, we've ranked them. So taking on board evidence that's been submitted to us by CSO partners and research we've done ourselves, we rank the countries based on how well they're doing. So if we look, for example, if we look at the right to water and sanitation, just to show you how it works, you have here the commitment, and if you click through, then you'll see the indicators. So you can see exactly how we've ranked them, how we've come up with that 0.5 rating that we have. There we go. So as we can see there, this is all the evidence. I'm not going to go through it, but just shows you that if you drill into these different things, there's a lot of information there. As you can see, there's some that haven't been ranked. So, for example, Global Goal 6 hasn't been ranked. This will change once the new JMP figures come out, when we'll be starting to rank them. So that's the declarations and commitments of Kenya. We also have a country profile section, which is a section with lots of different documents. This is kind of going quite in depth on what's on government policies. Just gonna, hopefully it'll take us there in a second. But there are links to documents of government policies. Here we go. So we've got sector coordination mechanisms. So these are the different ministries, and then we have, there we go, civil society network organizations. We also have government strategies, so these are ones that WASH would come under, so environmental sanitation and hygiene, etc. So you can see there we've got quite a few. And that links to the PDFs, so you can download from them. And this is our monitoring mechanism. So in this, in the last section on the right-hand side, we have reports from reports from different CSOs. So we have the glass profiles there. We have JMP data. We have lots of different data there. So this is kind of the section of the website where we really are bringing together a lot of different information and just presenting it all in the same place. We also have a statistics tab. All of our statistics are sourced from what we would consider reputable sources, so we thoroughly check the methodology before it gets put on the website. So you have, I'll show you in a second. Sorry, the website seems to be a bit slow today. I'm not entirely sure why. So on the statistics page, you can get access to statistics such as JMP figures, more general water and sanitation. Here we go. So we've got general statistics, water, sanitation, WASH finance. There's quite a lot of information there looking, it's on the left-hand side, looking at funding, health, education, infrastructures there as well. And for each of these statistics, if you click on it, it will show you a graph showing the progress for however long we've got the data for, and it will give you a direct link to the source. So this is a very transparent way of presenting all the WASH information within Kenya. We also have here our interactive maps. So what we've done at WASHwatch is we've taken JMP data and used it to make our own projections on access figures. So as you can see here, in 2017, we're saying 65%. You can also use this interactive feature to go back to 1990, so you can see the progress that's been made. And you can also continue to go and see, once we get to 2030, that our projections are that there will be 75% of people will have access to water. On the right-hand side, you have the same from sanitation. So you go back to 1990, and it's 25%. Today, we're looking at 30%. And then in 2030, you're looking at 33%. So this is a really good, it's a really good opportunity to see not only the access figures, but also the how progress is being made and whether that progress is slow, as you can see there for Kenya for sanitation. So there we go. You've got these trajectories. This is what needs to happen if you can see my mouse there. If we want to hit that everyone everywhere by 2030 target. Down here as well, we have the top WASH ODA donors. This is currently bilateral, so as you can see, this is the figure of WASH-funded projects that have gone to Kenya from Japan in the last year. The last year of OECD data, which would have been from 2015. So there is the list, and you can see what countries are giving and how much they're giving. So as I said, this is for every country in the world. Something else that is quite a useful tool is, I'm going to continue with the East and Southern African theme. And we have a chance to present information side by side. So these are our regional pages. So as you can see here, we have every country in East and Southern Africa as using the UNICEF definition. And you can see how well they're ranking, how well they've done as a group on different things. So you can see all the declarations there, and if you go down to statistics, you can see the comparison. So this is a really useful tool to be able to really just directly say, right, these are our neighbouring countries, this is how well they're doing. It can be quite a powerful tool. Okay, I'm just going to show you one last little tool, which is expanding from, I showed you the focus on Kenya of the projections, but this is our global map of projections as well. So it does the same, it does a similar thing. You can go back to 1990, and you can go forward to 2030 as well for water and sanitation. So that's a brief overview of what WASHwatch does. We also have a lot of kind of content that comes out, so we do blogs on monitoring and things like that. Next week we will be releasing donor profiles as well, so we're going to be looking at some key bilateral donors, seeing where their WASH funding is going, what systems they're investing in, and lots more information, so make sure to kind of keep an eye out for that. We're also looking to develop our online tools. So the idea of WASHwatch is to the idea of WASHwatch is to be as useful as possible for CSOs. So we're always looking for feedback, but always looking to work with people. And currently, yeah, we are looking to work on our online tools and data visualization to make it as easy as possible to use this data in people's advocacy and policy work. So I just wanted to mention that as we're moving into the discussion portion, so that if anyone has any ideas, please do share. So that is everything from me. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's so great to see such an information bank and repository of data that is just so powerful to have on hand for individual advocacy efforts and opportunities to keep governments accountable. So can you see my screen again now?
No, we can't. We can just see, no, we can't see your screen. Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay. Wonderful. And I realize that I may have skipped over a couple of your slides here. Do you still want to speak to these points, or have you already gone over them through the demo?
That's okay. No, skip past those.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to all the speakers and the attendees. So we had discussed a couple of questions that we'd love to open up to the audience. So the first is, what are some monitoring and accountability work that you're currently conducting? Do you have any stories to share? Another question we have is, what are some challenges that you're facing with collecting or using data for monitoring and accountability in this sector? And how could some existing tools either be developed or new tools created or improved to fill any gaps that are left unfilled? So to kind of discuss these questions, you can feel free to use the chat feature of the program, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. So you can feel free to chat the answers to those questions or any question that you might have for speakers as well, to kind of open up the conversation a little bit. And what I can do, and we'll see what happens, I will unmute the if there's a way to do that, or maybe I guess there is no way for me to unmute all of the speakers. But you can also raise your hand if you have a question, and I can unmute you as well if you prefer asking your question out loud rather than through the chat feature. So I'll leave a minute to see if anybody wants to contribute anything from your work or a question or a comment. Okay, Al Hassan, I saw that you had your hand up. I just unmuted you.
Yes, my question is to Emmy and Stuart. The WashWatch currently is on basic services coverage. So what would the graphs look like when you start measuring safely managed?
Okay, and I will unmute Amy and Stuart.
Hi, Alison. This is Stuart. Obviously, when the new safely managed data are released, then those trend lines are going to come down quite a lot. And I think what we'll see is when the second part of the graph, so the projections to 2030, which Amy pointed out, will be far steeper than they are now. But obviously, we're waiting on the data being released before we can see exactly what that will look like.
We will be presenting the new JMP data alongside the current data that's on there, but we won't be directly comparing it because they're not directly comparable. So that's also something to mention as well.
Great. Thank you for that. We have a question from Nakagwa Rosemary. Rosemary, I have unmuted you, so go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you to the presenters. I have only two. One goes specifically to Samson. The issue of CSOs, following donors' requests and seeing them changing their interests also to follow donors. Is it possible, to see how CSOs could also specialize, their activities? For example, we have a civil society organization called CSBAD, Civil Society for Advocacy, something. They more specifically follow for budget allocations in districts. I find it becomes more relevant to deal with a CSO that has specified their area of action than having it all as a CSO. That is one. And then another one is to Stuart on the issue of on the WASHwatch. I don't know whether I missed out something, and I was still wondering how data that is used to update this tool is collected. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Samson, I'll unmute you first, and then I'll pass the mic over to Stuart and Amy to address the second question. So Samson, you have the floor.
I think I would generally agree that it is always easier working with civil society organizations that are specialized and focused only on one area. But I would be quick also to say that this is always context specific, in the sense that civil society organizations work within different contexts and are advised by such contexts to organize themselves to engage in different activities. But that said, I would also say that many civil society organizations, especially in Africa where I come from, are operating in the context of very diminishing sources of funding, and most of them are not do not have funds which are self-generated. And therefore, in many cases, we find that civil society organizations orient themselves based on available opportunities. And this then advises that they would be, looking like they are multiple oriented simply because of the opportunities that are available. I'll stop there.
Okay. And Rosemary, does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up question?
No. No, I don't have a follow-up question.
Great. Thank you, Samson, for that clarification. And Stuart and Amy, I'll unmute you now to address the second question. Oops, 1 second. Ooh, there we go.
Okay, thank you for your question, Rosemary. So the data on WASHwatch is collected in two ways, primarily. So primarily it's, so the WASHwatch platform is hosted by WaterAid in the UK. So we have some staff members who work to update the sort of statistics side of the website, and also sort of doing internet searches for the commitments and things such as mechanisms. There's also a crowdsourced element where we ask users to send us documents and evidence which we can then upload to the website as well. So the idea behind WASHwatch when it was started was very much that it would be a sort of participatory gathering of evidence by civil society, which would then sort of increase the impact of its use by bringing it all together in one place and allowing people to sort of use it in a sort of more accessible manner. So I hope that answers the question there.
Yep. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you. So I see another hand raised from Lil, but I just got a quick chat from Lotte saying that she'd like to make a comment on this discussion. So Lotte, you are unmuted. Hold on 1 second. Okay, Lotte, you have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, just one comment. Since at WIN we are very much a specialized CSO, and I think so. If I look at it from my own perspective, it does certainly have a lot of advantages in the sense that others usually quite clearly know when it makes sense to collaborate with you. But certainly I also see the point that Samson raised, that and I think one of the key findings from this CSO report and also the last one that KWASnet had was that many of the CSOs they monitored, they only have one project, and so what has been seen through that in terms of the CSO landscape in Kenya is that it's changing on an annual basis quite a lot. So also every year it changes a lot which CSOs appear in this report. And this is also because a lot of CSOs only have one project, and then when that is finished, sometimes there's a gap, so the organization falls apart, and then maybe it starts again later at some point. And I think also as international NGOs working with local NGOs, that can sometimes be a challenge in terms of that you don't have a lot of stability within these organizations. Which has, of course, also challenging in terms of capacities. But again, there a big problem is also what we see is, a lot of people are talking about, CSOs specializing or taking up more of a watchdog role, but that the funding is still very much on very short projects on service delivery. And so kind of what people say, what they want, and what they, what donors provide funding for, that goes into different directions, which makes it very, very challenging for CSOs.
Great. Yeah, I agree on all of those points. I think those are all great to have. great to keep in mind. Lil, I will pass you the mic. Let me just... Okay, Lil, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I am Lil Soto from Costa Rica and I work for Avina Foundation. I have a question regarding the monitoring of quality and sustainability in the access to water and sanitation. Because as you know, some of the statistics do not take into consideration the quality of the access to water and sanitation. So is there any experience that you're familiar or that you know that is measuring these issues on quality and sustainability, especially related to community water management organizations and access in rural and peri-urban areas? I've read in the atlas that was published this week from the World Health Organization that 1 in 4 people in the world that have access to water, that access is to contaminated water. So we have developed a tool in Avina Foundation that measures the health of this community water management organization. We call it DOXAS, and is in Google Play, and is it measures like the health in the management of these organizations. But we are dealing with this issue of how to measure quality and sustainability of the access to water at rural and peri-urban areas. So if you have any experience that you can share with us, I will be delighted. Thank you.
Thank you for your question and for sharing some of the projects that you're working on. I will unmute Lotte, who just let me know that she would be able to address this. And Lotte, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think this is spot on, and maybe if you don't mind, you could share the link to what you have developed in the chat, because I would be super interested in this, because certainly this is also something we see in many countries that we work in. And currently in Kenya, we are also we do have a project to address this. So we work with community groups, and the status that we see is that many of them at the moment don't really have the right legal status, and they don't really have a linkage to the local authorities, which is also why they are not being monitored. So many of these community groups, they somehow operate completely outside the official system, so to say, and they're not being monitored, but nobody looks whether the services they provide comply with human rights standards. But the issue is also that they also don't really get support from public authorities. So we are now working with WASHwatch, with the regulator in Kenya, because the issue is all of the monitoring tools are at the moment in Kenya for public utilities. So what we are working on with WASHwatch is some very simplified standards and indicators that can be monitored for these systems, for these community managed systems. And there are 3 main areas that we see that need to be monitored in any case. And one is the governance or management of these systems. So how are they being managed, and is that management legitimate? The second one is the tariff. So yeah, what are they charging for water? And the third one is the water quality, because a lot of the time the systems we have visited, you know, there have not been any water quality tests since sometimes the boreholes were drilled like 15 years ago. Yeah, so I'm just saying this is not only an issue in Costa Rica, but I would also be happy to share what we have developed simplified indicators for the groups that we currently work with, and hopefully later this year there will be some development on this in Kenya as well, with new simplified indicators from the regulator.
Great, thank you. I'm just looking at the time and wondering if the program will kick us out in about 20 seconds if the 60 minutes run out. I'm not sure if it lets us go over time. So hopefully we don't get interrupted and we can continue our conversation. Let's just wait. We're just about that 60-minute mark right now. So let's see if it lets us go over time. Okay, great. It looks like it will. Great. I just got a little nervous for a second. Thank you for that clarification. And Samson just let me know that he can contribute a bit of an input as well and share some of the tools that they're using here at KWASnet. So Samson, I'm giving you the mic now.
Thank you, Alex. I'll also be very quick because it works in the same context. It's also a sister toolbox to what Lotte has just said. In our case, we call ours the IQC toolbox, which is the Integrity, Quality, and Compliance toolbox, and which also tries to narrow down in terms of the work that civil society organizations are doing. What is the level of quality in the delivery of the project quality by itself? But this is what we currently use. But in the course of this year and a bit of last year, we've also been working with the National Commission on Human Rights and the relevant ministries to also develop a framework on monitoring human rights, water, and sanitation in Kenya. And this is a tool that then we are going to be using much more to look at what are the quality parameters and how are they being met towards the fulfillment of the constitutional right to water and sanitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Samson. And also looking to contribute to this question is Stuart and Amy. So go ahead, Stuart.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, as Lottie said, I'd be very interested to see the tool you mentioned, Lil, if you could share that. From our side, there is also the M-Water tool, which has been developed, it's been designed with sort of community health workers in mind to provide a sort of simple way of testing water in a mobile setting. So if you sort of Google for M-Water test kits, that might be something that is interesting to look at. But then I think more broadly on the sort of monitoring and accountability question with regard to water quality, with the new JMP SDG data, which will sort of disaggregate between safely managed water, which is of a high quality, and basic water, which isn't necessarily of a high quality, I think that's an opportunity for civil society to engage with that data and use it as a platform for advocacy, because there should be some robust evidence as to the progress on sort of quality water. So that'd be sort of one point I'd be interested to see if others agreed with. And then the second point on the sustainability of services, or sort of Lil mentioned sustainability. I think that really gets to the point of sustainability of services, which I don't think can be achieved unless the people responsible for delivering the services, be that local governments or utility providers, are using the data that's being provided to sort of monitor their service delivery and, you know, change course when necessary if certain policies aren't working, or to scale up approaches that are. So I'd also be interested to hear if any of the participants on the call have any thoughts about how to sort of engage with local governments or with utility service providers to sort of increase their use of data and monitoring. So that'd be a question for me back to the participants, if that is okay.
Great. Yeah, that's great. So I will let people add their take on that in the question or chat area, and we'll come back to those questions, Stuart, in just a minute. And in the meantime, I will let Samuel Chan and ask his question. So, Samuel, you're unmuted now.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, hello, yeah. Thank you very much for the great presentation and understanding about the water sector. I want to ask one the accountability question in Liberia. Yeah, the end water property, I want to know which organization that the end water property working with in Liberia, and the CSO engagement with the water policy, WaterAid level is much later, and what are the accountability process for Liberia so that I can work with Liberia in that?
Okay, I'm sorry, the sound quality cut out just a little bit. Could you just repeat your question?
Yeah, my question is good in monitoring and evaluation process. That's from in Liberia, there are a lot of that are inadequate to the water information, especially those are living in rural. And for the accountability process, I want to know the end water property, which organization are they working with, and as well, and the water and property, which organization they are working with in Liberia, and how the CSO Liberia can better get accountability with the end water property campaign.
Okay, so to have a better idea of the organizations that are part of the End Water Poverty Network in different countries, I would point you to our website. What I can also do is request that Al-Hassan Adam, who's on the call today and who's the International Coordinator for End Water Poverty, Al-Hassan, if you can address this question, that would be great as well.
Yeah, thanks for your question on the Liberia whom we are working with. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so in Liberia, we work with the Liberia WASH Consortium, and then the other organizations are Citizens United to Promote Peace and Democracy in Liberia, and the Liberia Youth WASH Coalition. And do you know Prince Kappa?
Yes, Prince Pap.
Yeah, Prince Pap. So Prince is our contact person in Liberia. We work through him, and also the WaterAid office in Liberia. If you want to get in touch with us, you can talk to them as well.
Okay,
so those, yeah. Okay. So those are our partners in Liberia.
10 seconds. Just give me 10 seconds, please. 10 seconds.
So did you get my answers?
Can you give me 10 seconds to elaborate quickly?
Sure.
Hello? Okay. My organization is also working in the WASH sector. We are working with other CSO organizations, international partners on the end water property. And myself, I've been on this campaign for so long, but I've been looking for the requisite donors partner to liaise with, and how best this campaign can be implemented in part of the country. But I will also applaud your principal, the other committee president that I'm speaking to you right now, to establish the water commission in Liberia. Yeah, that's one of the work principals are doing. So I want to collaborate with principal so this campaign can be spread in the 16 countries in Liberia. But that's one of the things I want to join in water poverty. Yeah, want to implement this campaign in Liberia.
Thank you. So just contact Prince, and then we take it from there.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. While others are still contributing to Stuart's initial question, I'll pass the mic over to Clinton, who has raised his hand. So Clinton, I've unmuted you. So I'm not sure if your microphone is perhaps not turned on. I'll leave you another minute. You're unmuted on our end, so you just have to make sure that your microphone is turned on to ask your question, or you could also chat it. Okay. So Samson's answer to Stuart's initial question says it would be possible to have local authorities to use data and tools in promoting service delivery, advocacy, and monitoring. And he explains that in Kenya, for instance, the county governments are now reporting via an online portal on the access to sanitation, and in which the rest of the sector can monitor and then use the results for advocacy as well. So really highlighting the importance of online tools there. Clinton, I don't see you unmute. I don't see that your microphone is active. And I'm trying to access the questions pane to address other questions, but it is not coming up for some reason. Okay. Okay, if anybody else has a question that they have chatted to the chat box, I would ask that you please raise your hand, as I think that would make it easier to ask the questions to the speakers. Okay. Okay, so I don't see any new hands raised. So I think this might be a great time to wrap up our conversation. I think we've had a great webinar, great presentation from speakers, really highlighting some of the important factors within the sector of monitoring and accountability in water and sanitation and hygiene. Great contribution by the audience as well, and a global audience today. And I'd like to end this webinar by inviting you all to attend the other 3 webinars in our series. Oh, sorry, I just saw, I'll have Tabitha, who I just saw raised her hand, so you can wrap up the conversation with a quick question if you'd like, although I cannot see you on the list anymore. Okay, so the other 3 webinars that we have available are listed on the screen here. The next one's coming up next week on Thursday, March 16th, and we'll be focusing on realizing the human right to water and sanitation. So really drilling onto the different components of human right to water and sanitation. In 2 weeks, on the 23rd, we'll look at finance, which is often a scary topic to talk about, but a very important one as well. And in 3 weeks, on the 28th, on that Tuesday, we'll look at children and youth and the importance of including the younger generations in initiatives and conversations around WASH. So if there are questions as well on specifically the CSO report that Samson has shared today. He has requested that I share that you can send your inquiry to feedback@kewasnet.co.ke. And you'll receive an email as well with the recording of today's webinar that you can feel free to share with your networks as well. So with that said, thank you all so much for joining today, for taking the time to join this important conversation, and I really hope that you join us in our upcoming conversations throughout Water Action Month. Thank you again so much. Have a great day.